What's going on, guys? Today I want to talk to you about the single most useful, if not probably one of the most valuable tools in my shop. And I know what you're going to think. You're looking around me, seeing all these nice expensive tools. What could he be thinking? Well, you actually may be surprised. To me, the most useful and probably the most valuable tool in my shop is what I'm resting on right now, my welding table. I love my welding table. A welding table is pretty much the most pivotal piece in my shop. And it's also the most useful. To me, a useful tool is something that gets used very frequently, and every time I'm in here, I'm always using this table. And it's really difficult to find a good quality, decent priced welding table. Now this is 1/2 inch thick, solid steel plate, and I'm actually not 100% sure the dimensions. If I had to guess, it's probably maybe 5 feet by 10 feet, something like that. I could get a tape measure, but yeah, and I'll give you the backstory behind this table. So when I first started out in this shop, it was just 2 garage shop, which I'm using about 1 section of the garage right now, but there was literally nothing in here. I didn't have a tool to my name. So of course I'm really into welding, steel fabrication, so I always thought, I need to get a good quality welding table, because it's really crucial for welding to have a flat, solid work surface. Sure, you can get by, with smaller tables, or perhaps I wouldn't recommend a wooden bench, but perhaps a wooden bench with a thin piece of metal on top. But that's not really ideal because they warp, they bend over time. When you get a solid welding table like this, you can tack stuff on there, you can lay everything out, and you always know it's going to be perfectly flat. It's better than working on the concrete. Really a crucial tool to have if you're into welding. So for 2.5 years, I was looking on Craigslist for a good quality welding table at an affordable price. There's plenty of welding tables out there on Craigslist, but for some of the welding tables I was looking at, junkyards were asking like $1,000 for welding tables of similar stature. And for you to go out and purchase, the materials, this thing's constructed with, it's 2-inch square stock, but I'm sure that's pretty heavy wall square stock. And this plate, I can only imagine what a piece of plate like this would cost. Probably $600, $700, $800 alone for that plate. So, and it's got some really heavy-duty steel casters. So, for you to make this brand new, it would be really expensive. I would guess it'd be upwards of $1,000 plus your time and materials and cost of running your welder. So, I didn't want to spend that much. So again, for 2.5 years, I looked on Craigslist, and I finally, I was searching Craigslist one day, and I found this table, this exact table, and the guy was asking $600. And at the time, I was a student. I'm like, hey, I'm just starting out my shop. I'm really into metal fabrication. Can you work with me on the price? And I eventually got him down to $400, and I'm like, all right, I'm finally going to have a good quality welding table, something that I'll have for probably the rest of my life, because I never plan to let this welding table go. So I drive down to Philadelphia in my little F-150. I was hauling a tandem axle steel dump trailer, which that trailer was pretty heavy. So I go down there, pick up the table, bring it back, and that's the story behind that. You do want to be careful with Craigslist though. I would not recommend buying a used welder. Real quick, while we're on the topic of Philadelphia, actually about a month prior to purchasing this table down in Philly, I actually went down there in search of a used Miller welding machine. I think it was a 175 machine, and it was a reasonable price compared to what they cost brand new. And I told the guy, like, hey, I want to test this out, just to make sure it's operating properly. He's like, oh, I don't know, I don't really have the proper outlet. And at first, it didn't really cross my mind at how sketchy that was. And then I told him, all right, if you won't let me test it out, then I want to have a written contract saying if I take this home and it doesn't work, then I'm going to return this and you're going to give me a full refund. So I go down there, and he redneck wired this thing into his washing machine outlet. And so we go to test it out, and it wasn't running right. It was a flux cord wire. We had the machine wired up properly, and it wasn't running. It was just splattering. It wasn't really running smoothly, so I decided to, of course, adjust the dials. And what was weird is I turned up the voltage dial, and it increased the wire feed. So, I mean, that thing was just a piece of junk. He was just trying to off it. So, moral of the story, be careful what you purchase on Craigslist when it comes to, pieces of machinery. But I got a great deal on this welding table. Again, it is the most useful tool in my shop, and I'm never going to let this go. And when justifying spending the money on a welding table, you got to look at it like this. I mentioned it a little bit earlier. This is something that you will have for the rest of your life. Like, when I eventually move out of this little shop, I mean, this is absolutely coming with me. There's no question in my mind. I'll leave the woodworking bench behind. Of course, I'm going to take the toolboxes and all the tools, but this welding table, for the hassle it is to move it, this is absolutely coming with me. So if you're looking to get into welding, aside from your welder, probably the most single important investment you can make is in a welding table. And to start, it doesn't have to be this big. I'll show you the two smaller tables that I started out with right now. First welding table I started out with was this piece of junk over here. And I got this one for free actually. It's actually 2 plates welded together. And I got this from a buddy who was teaching me how to blacksmith. Again, it's 2 plates welded right here, so it kind of bows in the middle. And it was very difficult to lay things out because I was welding pieces together and there was a little bit of bow in there. So that's, again, why it's crucial to have a really flat and solid piece of metal to do your fabrication on. Alright, here's my second welding table. And I got this table on eBay for $20. This plate was actually on this stand over here, which this has just kind of become a storage stand for a leaf blower right now, but that's the original stand it was on. And I took that plate off and I put it on this toolbox because I figured it'd be a more useful way of utilizing my space, of course. So I did a video on this a while back, how I created this, and this is really cool because it's an old beater toolbox, which I keep some chisels and other kind of crummier tools in here. And it doubles up as a really nice little small welding table, and I do a lot of little projects right here. Again, if you watch the video, you'll see how I created this, but there's nuts and bolts down here to stabilize this. So in conclusion, if you're into welding and fabrication, it's really a good idea to get a good quality welding table. But if you're not looking to pay full-blown retail for brand new raw materials and you don't want to create it yourself, keep your eyes out. First welding table, like I said, I got for free. Second one, $20 on eBay. 3/8 inch steel plate. Incredible deal. I mean, I couldn't buy that plate for $20, let alone, the structure that it came with. And this welding table, $400. Of course, I had to go pick it up down in Philadelphia, but I did not mind at all driving down there to get this thing. But yeah, just keep your eyes peeled. Keep an eye out on Craigslist, eBay. If you have any friends that are into welding or blacksmithing, keep asking them, hey, anybody that's selling a decent quality welding table? I'm just starting out or whatever. And eventually you will come across one. It's just a matter of time. I haven't really checked out too many junkyards, but there's a lot of junkyards on Craigslist that are selling, these $1,000 tables, which nobody really wants to spend $1,000 on a welding table. And as for maintenance, if this was outside, I'd oil it, but because this is inside, all I do is I just take this wire wheel on this old angle grinder, and then from time to time I'll just clean it off. And the nice thing about having a clean, semi-shiny welding table like this is when I want to weld something and it's not like a crucial weld, I'll take my ground clamp for the welder, I'll clip it right on the table, and if I take an 11R clamp, just clamp my material onto the table, then it's already grounded. I got a good ground because the surface is clean, and as long as I have halfway decent clean metal, I'll get a good quality weld. So that's all I have to say about this table. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments below.